Welcome back to the Tracy Take. Today, Ryan and I, we are continuing our 7-round mock draft series going with the Houston Texans. But before we get into that, Ryan and I, we have a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers by April 27th, which is NFL draft night. So help us reach our goal by hitting that subscribe button and also ringing that bell so you can get notified when we create new content. It's the easiest way to help us out and reach our goal, and we greatly appreciate it. Ryan, that being said, let's get into it. Houston Texans they've made a lot of moves already in the free agency. And so with the 7-round mock draft, we did this for all the teams and on Sunday, March 12th. And so now we're recording this on March 20th here because we've already done over half the league. Go check out those videos and then also watch this video as well. And Texans have made a lot of moves since then. Brandon Cooks is gone. Robert Woods is here. Dalton Schultz is here. They're actually becoming like it seems like the Dallas Cowboys light because they're making some trades and getting some guys from there. And so they just keep keeping these players in Texas, but they've made a lot of moves. And so I'm very curious to kind of see what they end up doing draft night because they have a lot of picks and a lot of good picks. I think that they can make some moves. And I like their head coach, D'Amico Ryans. And that being said, I think it's going to be a more defensive heavy draft, but except for their first pick. Ryan, who are they selecting at number 2 overall?
So at number 2 overall, we have them selecting Bryce Young, the quarterback from Alabama. Honestly, you watch him on tape, and he looks like a mini Patrick Mahomes. And his only thing is that he's 5'10", and I really like him on tape. I just think you look at him, and it's harder to bet on an outlier, and I think he's the one that gets taken second. If it's the other way around, we would have them taking C.J. Stroud here. And so it's kind of 1A, 1B. Whoever they get is who they're going to get. And yeah, I really like this pick. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So
this with all that talk before the Bears had traded back, it's like I was looking at it just didn't make sense for the Texans to trade up because I think they're going to be satisfied with either guy. And they probably would have wanted to go after Bryce Young, and in this scenario, they still get Bryce Young here. So obviously some height concerns, but other than that, I mean, if he was 4 inches taller, he'd be the hands down number 1 cornerback taken off. There'd be no discussion about it, really. So I still think I think he's going to be great in the system. Very curious to kind of see how he does. A new head coach, new system. They're finally able to start rebuilding after the whole Deshaun Watson scandal, then also the management done by Bill O'Brien. But I digress. All the Texas fans know about that. Let's move on, though, now to number 12. And at number 12, there's a lot of different options that they could go here. I will preface at this point, the top 3 offensive linemen, Skoronski, Paris Johnson Jr., and Broderick Jones were all off the board. So we thought it might be too much of a stretch to go with Cyrus Torrence there, even though I could maybe see them doing that. But we ended up going with a guy who we think D'Amico Ryans would love. You can put him anywhere in the secondary. And it's probably like one of the most versatile athletic guys that's in this draft. But the fact that he's a safety kind of drops his value a little bit. And that's Brian Branch out of Alabama. He's just such a fun player to watch. You can put him free safety, box safety. You can have him as a nickel corner. You can bring him up maybe even as a linebacker on blitzes. He's just a very versatile guy, just a great football player. And I can only imagine how effective he's going to be in this D'Amico Ryans defense.
No, yeah. I mean, you can play him deep. You can play him in the box and anywhere in between. His Kansas State game for me solidified the fact that he is a top 20 pick in this NFL draft. And he's just so versatile. He does so well just anything that you put him at. And at 12, especially for a team that's rebuilding, I think that's just a tremendous pick. He's going to be a leader in the locker room as well. And I just really like this pick. So
yeah. I know Jimmy Ward did come over from San Francisco and followed D'Amico Ryans there. And I thought about it. I do still like this pick there because maybe he can kind of teach him and show him like the ropes and give him tips so that he can be an effective safety, just as like how Jimmy Ward has been his entire career. So let's move on though now to the Texans' next pick. And this one, we got a little crazy with it. In this mock, a lot of the receivers fell. And as we all know by now, Brandon Cooks is gone from the Texans, traded with Dallas. And so they're going to be looking for their the new number 1 receiver and a big-bodied outside receiver. and Quentin Johnson fell in our draft, and we're both not the highest on him. So I'd be curious to hear your guys. But we actually had the Texans trade up with Buffalo, and I believe they traded. It was the 33rd pick for, I believe. What did they also give up there? Was it like the
34 and then 105 to move up to 28. Also, if you notice that the pick numbers are slightly off, it's because the draft tool we used counted the forfeited picks as a pick. So the Dolphins forfeited first round pick at 21 counts as a pick, so it moves everything down a number.
Yeah.
So the Texans, their next pick is here at 28, and we had them selecting wide receiver Quentin Johnston from TCU. And at 28, I mean, this is tremendous value. He is a freak athlete, 6'3", I believe, 215, has tremendous after the catch capabilities. But the reason that he fell for us, there's a lot that's left to be desired on his tape. He doesn't run complex routes. He has some focus drops, and sometimes he just does awkward things. Like instead of high pointing the football, he lets the ball come to his chest. And it's just not quite things you want to see from what a lot of people consider to be the number one wide receiver in this class. We actually have him as the fourth wide receiver off the board in this draft. All the wide receivers went in between 18 and 28. So that for us was kind of the deal breaker. And I like this pick at 28. I think he's a very solid piece. And at the very least, he's going to be a field stretcher for this offense. So.
Well, and I like this too, is you're giving up just an early fourth round pick to go then potentially if Quentin Johnson is the guy and he can grow and to be like that elite receiver that we all think he can be, like with how high his ceiling is, you get him for an extra year on that rookie contract, getting him in the first round. And so I very curious to see what his draft stock is like, and also just the receivers in general in this draft class, just because very mixed feelings and emotions kind of on when teams might want to take a guy. Like, could they take Quentin Johnson at number 12? Like, I was like, I don't think that would be a good pick, but there have been people who have thought that, and mocks have said like, hey, he can go this high. So very interesting to kind of see that range. So let's move on to their next pick at pick number 66, starting off the third round. We have them going with the defensive interior here with Gervin Dexter from Florida. Really like this pick. They have not addressed the defensive line up until this point, or the front seven at all. And so I think really beefing up this team, because that's going to be one of the things I think that they need to address. They addressed that a little bit in the free agency, signing Sheldon Rankins as well from the New York Jets, which is a really good signing that I like. And I don't believe it's anyone else here. I'm trying to looking at over the cap here. So Hassan Ridgeway also followed D'Amico Ryans as well. So we're getting young talent, and I really like Gervin Dexter, just fine and good offseason so far.
Yeah, no, I like what he brings to the table. He's a really athletic defensive tackle, and he is a little bit lighter, but he makes up for that with his ability to get around guards and create space on the line of scrimmage and move past people. He has very, very nice length. I think he's a perfect defensive lineman for a D'Amico Ryans system, and getting him here at 66, I think is really good value. So let's move on now to pick 74, where we have Nick Herbig, the linebacker from Wisconsin. He's more of an outside linebacker, edge rusher type guy, but he's a very nice speed rusher that actually has pretty good speed to power, and he can set an edge in the run game. He can drop back into coverage. He's just about 6'2", 235. He's not going to be the best edge setter. He's not going to be the most powerful guy, but very versatile guy. It does extremely well in space and is very good at chasing down running backs and mobile quarterbacks, which in this division, that's something that you very much need out of an edge rusher. So I like this pick. Again, he's a little undersized, but the production's there, and you can see the physicality on tape. He's very, very fast. So yeah.
So from here, when we did this mock draft, obviously the Brandon Cooks trade had not happened, and so we don't have pick 163 in here, which is what they got from the Dallas Cowboys for the Brandon Cooks trade. But in that mock, though, the Cowboys did take cornerback Alex Austin, and that actually is a pick I do like if he is available. I can also see them going here offensive line because we have not addressed offensive line yet. I believe we are at their next pick. But they haven't addressed offensive line yet, and I think that obviously is a need for the Texans, but I think the value that we've got at other positions, it was hard to pass up in the moment. So I can maybe they'll address offensive line sooner than we have. But here at this pick, I can definitely see them going offensive line.
Yeah. No, and like you said, at 190 in the end of the 6th round, we have them going with an offensive lineman, Luke Haggard, the tackle from Indiana. Just a good guy. Most likely he's going to kick in to play guard or at right tackle, but just a really solid player, has good length, and yeah, I think he'll be on the roster as a backup come September. So I like that one. Dylan Horton, the edge rusher from TCU, is another good developmental guy. And then you have Carrington Valentine, the cornerback from Kentucky, athletic corner, but still just really, really raw with his technique. Henry Bainivalu, I have no idea how to pronounce that name.
I can't. So
interior offensive line from Washington. And again, just adding depth across that offensive line. And one pick I actually really like, this is a really deep tight end class, but at 239, we have Braden Willis, the tight end from Oklahoma, had a good combine. And then lastly, Miles Brooks, the cornerback from Louisiana Tech, to round out the draft, Mr. Irrelevant here at 261. And all in all, I just think these later round picks are solid developmental pieces. I think a few of them are going to be able to make the roster or a practice squad role.
Yeah.
Very, very, very early on. So,
well, and they also too, those latter ones, like they address needs that are now and our developmental pieces that maybe can take over. Like tight end, for example, you mentioned Braden Willis. They lost what was his name? Oh, Jordan Atkins. They did just sign Dalton Schultz today, actually. But so then getting a young tight end, maybe that you can kind of develop, grow within the system, and can have him be maybe a long-term option with Bryce Young. So in this draft, I like it. It is, I would say, one of the better drafts that we've seen when we did our mock draft. A lot of picks. Also, when you're picking early, you're obviously going to get a lot much better talent. And so, in general, I liked it. One thing I think maybe we could have addressed a little bit sooner was offensive line, but I remember we talked about it. It was tough to pass up on some of these players like Quentin Johnston. It's like you move up 5 spots and you could go get the star receiver. Maybe if they don't trade up and they stay at that normal spot. Bills actually ended up taking Steve Avila, guard from TCU. And I think that might be a good option if they decide to stay put. So very interesting on the Texans and the route that they can go come draft night.
Yeah, no. But again, like you said, I really like this draft, and I think it would be a very good rebuild and start to a rebuild for the Houston Texans. But let's go ahead. Let's wrap the Houston Texans up right there.